Hey, so I'm sitting today with Councillor Mike Nicol from Edmonton. Councillor Nicol's been really making some news now and then as the Maverick councillor up there. Similar for our Calgary watchers, he's like the Edmonton Jeremy Farkas in some ways. He stands out from the crowd in these municipal politics that seem to kind of all move in a pack, and they sure get upset when somebody dares to break from the pack. Something that has recently come out, though, is Councillor Nicol has sent a letter to the Municipal Affairs Minister, Tracy Allard, the new one, and as well as Casey Madhu, our former one, asking for an investigation into what appears to be some outside funding, perhaps influencing the last election. So thanks for coming on, Mike. Can you expand a bit on that?
Well, today, that's exactly it. This has to deal with Mayor Don Iveson and his relationship to a political consulting firm called Stratcom. And back in 2013, when the Mayor Don Iveson was running for election, he garnered some services. It's right on the Stratcom website. It says Stratcom did various voter contact polling and so on for him. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is perfectly legit, and that's okay. So, but what's interesting is Stratcom is also a company that works for other organizations like David Suzuki, Greenpeace, I believe Paths for People on there. Certainly, I would say organizations and nonprofits not on my Christmas card list, and they wouldn't be on. I wouldn't get. That's just not my kind of crew. But But the important thing here is to delineate is that they also do charitable fundraising for various groups, and that's also commendable. But it says very clear in the Income Tax Act, no charitable resources or funding can go to partisan politics whatsoever. So my question was very simple to the mayor and to Stratcom. How are you ensuring that these things stay separate and above board? And I don't think that's a difficult question. I just need a yes or a no, and we have this saying, trust but verify, that the old Ronald Reagan pitch. And that's all what Stratcom is really about, but it is very serious because if you look on their website, Stratcom is also the company that organized some of our anti-pipeline campaigns in other provinces. So it kind of concerns me, and so I'm back to the trust but verify, and I'd like some straight up answers.
Yeah, I believe you mentioned Leadnow as well, and that group is very politicized, and they've taken part in some very, well, to be blunt, hard left-wing campaigns, which is a democratic right, but you don't want to do that under the radar. I mean, voters want to know who's coming from where, and it says that they participated too.
It's also, some of your viewers might be aware, Vivian Krause did some work with American-funded sources, or American sources bringing money into Canada, and I believe Leads Now did take some money from Washington D.C. group a while ago, and so it's like, you know what? When it gets to this level and these sorts of issues, they're not all federal, they're not all provincial. So this is coming right down to the meat and potatoes at the municipal level as well. So the same sort of scrutiny that we had on the weed charity scandal, that we have here in Alberta on other issues, I think it's just commensurate that we should be, have our due diligence.
Well, absolutely. I mean, transparency, I think, is everything. As long as people know where things are coming from, the voters can make up their own minds. But it's when they kind of sneak under the radar. It seems almost a consequence. We've really seemed to have cracked down in the last decade on open contributions by businesses or large contributions to candidates provincially and municipally. But then what happens is like a game of whack-a-mole. PACs pop up and special interest groups and so on, and just sort of do and funnel that money that the candidates used to. And I think some of the transparency actually got lost.
Yeah, I agree, and it's really important for people to understand that some of these campaigns that seem to be grassroots, seem to be organic, are certainly not. Now, I'm not suggesting Stratcom or any other organization does that, but I will tell you, it is kind of odd that I receive emails on certain civic issues from British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Ontario, and so something else is going on here that I really do believe, like you said, for transparency's sake, so everybody knows what's what. And I think politics has changed dramatically in the last 10, 15 years. And so now it's just trust but verify.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you're speaking up. So maybe I'll just talk quickly on some of the issues you've dealt with for daring to speak up. As I said, Municipal councils seem to kind of move in packs, and they really don't like it when somebody deviates from the pack. And you had to deal with a code of conduct issue, and you were taken on the carpet there. Maybe if you could let our Calgarian listeners and maybe expand for the Edmonton ones is what you recently endured.
Well, it's very, very, very similar to Jeremy Farkas, your councillor down in Calgary. The funny part is we're both from Ward 11. I don't know if that's a coincidence or whatever. And I had a podcast. I have a show called Mic Check that I get people to tune into. And we talked about his code of conduct and my code of conduct. Basically was me calling out emergency bike lanes in the city of Edmonton. I thought they were absurd. I don't mind bike lanes as long as they're being used, but putting pylons in the road in the middle of a pandemic, is that really what?
We're doing it here too, and the pylons are turning into a hazard because the homeless people are throwing them in the streets, and nobody's using them. It's just ridiculous.
And yeah, so I called it out. I put a couple memes out, and then some people decided to file some code of conduct charges against me. What I found most frustrating, though, is that our integrity commissioner said this was off board. And I felt she overreached, and she's tried. And basically, she said she could come onto my social media, my personal social media, and edit what I get to say. And of course, I was not going to apologize for calling out emergency bike lanes. I was not going to step back from what I have done, especially on my own pages that I pay for. And nope, but she felt different. And 8 of my fellow councillors agreed. And 4 did not, but much to their chagrin, or my chagrin, however that you want to use it, they didn't get their supermajority, so I beat the rap. Unlike Jeremy, who got escorted out of council, I don't think I'll be able to top that one.
Well, we'll give it time. It doesn't sound like you plan on speaking up, but it's just ridiculous, the lengths that these little clusters are going to shut out other voices. I mean, we don't have a formal opposition party in these municipal governments models, so we really do need somebody to speak from outside of the pack critically, whether they're right or wrong. And again, it's up for the voters to determine. But it's a scary trend when they're really forcefully trying to quell differing voices from the majority there. So.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. There's a kind of a political bigotry that's kind of entered into our politics, where if you dare have a different point of view, their only idea is to either bully you or shout you down and not talk about the substantive facts around the issues. And I've always said this is the feelings, not facts, politician that permeates our city councils. When you try to present the facts to them, well, I feel it should be different, even though the world works completely the opposite. We can go back to emergency bike lanes. We're talking about putting in a gondola here in Edmonton.
I know.
It's like, what?
It's like the no concept of fiscal responsibility. It seems to be just an epidemic among municipal every form of government, but that's a larger, broader issue.
Now I understand you guys are putting in a 7% tax increase in Calgary.
Yep. Yeah, and
are they mad? Are they absolutely mad? Wow.
Well, this happens. They'll back off a little bit in the election year, but they keep hiking all the way through, and everybody gets upset. But you know what? Mayor Nenshi and the rest of them all get reelected every time. So it's at a point where I think it's kind of up to the voters to say they've had enough. But in times like this, it's insane that they're increasing taxes like that. And again, Jeremy Farkas and a couple others are the only voices daring to speak up, which is shocking.
This might be surprising to a lot of you people in Calgary. I have a very good relationship with our civic unions here in town. And I basically sat them down and I said, it's not how much I pay you, it's how much productivity I get out of you for the money I pay you. And my unions are frustrated as well. Our frontline workers can't get anything done. We have too much middle management. Our overhead and red tape is at absurd levels. I'm sure these sound very familiar to what's going on in Calgary with a council that doesn't seem to want to fix anything and or get to the mechanics of it. You tell me, does this sound familiar? They bring forward a motion and they throw it to administration, you go fix it. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, it sounds like the priorities are backwards. I mean, I know in Calgary City Council, they'll sit and spend a whole day fighting over the most small of myopic, micromanaging things. And then when it comes to broad oversight, they'll shout down councillors who dare to question administration. In my view, it seems that municipal government should be the high level overlooking and watching of things and directly questioning administration, but not messing around with the little stuff. It seems almost backwards.
Yeah, but I think both in Edmonton and Calgary, the voters have finally realized value for your taxes and return on investment, social return on investment must be measured. We can't keep throwing money at our problem at the wall and hoping it's going to stick. And so those days are gone. And our economies are decimated, both in Edmonton and Calgary. We're talking a complete mechanical, if not philosophical, overhaul of what we need to do. And so the voters here in Edmonton, it almost is like there's the downtown point of view, and then there's life in the suburbs. And the people in the suburbs are getting very, very frustrated and certainly from the business point of view, the exodus has been not just alarming but catastrophic.
Yeah, no, Calgary's got a 30% downtown vacancy and growing right now as well. Well, we're coming into an election year, so let's hope it's a watershed one. We've got a lot to cover. It's going to be a lively year, I think. So I really appreciate you sitting down with me. I'm sure we'll be seeing and hearing more from you as you keep holding their feet to the fire up there. So I really appreciate that.
We have a couple more for you too that we think are going to be pretty shocking for the citizens to see as we lift the lid on administration and what the city's been doing and where the money's been going. Enough's enough. That's our saying here. Enough is enough. It's got to stop.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I hope we can talk about it when you lift that lid off. We'll see what scurries out from underneath.
Anytime. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks, Mike.